Welcome. So in this session, we are going to install Docker in our Jenkins server. Since we will be running Docker related commands in our Jenkins builds, it's always good to have Docker in our Jenkins server machine itself rather than in another machine.
I'm Kumar and welcome to my channel on tech and tutorials.
For this session, we are going to install the Docker in our Jenkins VM, which is Ubuntu 20 server. So let's go ahead and install Docker in our Jenkins machine. So for Docker installation, we can go to the Docker's documentation page where it shows what are the steps we need to take for installing it on any Linux distribution, either Ubuntu or CentOS or any other Linux. So if you are running on CentOS, you can use this install on CentOS and you can follow the steps here. So for our case, we will be installing on an Ubuntu server. So there isn't much of prerequisites, but there is OS requirement of 64-bit version of the following OS 21 and 20 and 18 minimum OS version should be running for this installation to be properly work. So let's go ahead and put in these commands to install. Okay, so this is our Jenkins server and I'm logged in as a general user. So go directly to root user for installing our Docker. So it requires root privileges. So let us directly go to the root user. So now I am logged in as root and let's put in the commands to install this Docker. So if you previously have any Docker versions, you can use this uninstall Docker old versions. And so first thing we have to do is we have to do the repository setup. So apt-get update, I'm already running as sudo, so I don't need that. So apt-get update and it's updating the OS. Next, we are going to put in all this information to set up the repository. Okay, just copy and paste and looks to be done. Let me clear the screen. Next is we need to add the Docker's GPG key. So you can just copy this information and come to our console and then just directly paste here. Okay, it will not give any output. Okay, so the next thing is to set up the repository. Okay, so this is the full command. You can directly just copy this one and paste it there. So this is for the stable repository. If you want to use the nightly builds or the test builds, there is an option for that as well. You can change this stable word here to the nightly or test, something of that, and you can run it. So we are going to use the stable version. So let us go ahead and copy it in our Ubuntu server. And okay, so that completes all the setup. Now we can go ahead and run our installation. So apt-get update. Again, we have to do this. And finally, apt-get install Docker and container.io. Okay. So just paste it and put a -y here so that it doesn't prompt for any inputs. So I'll just hit enter. Okay, so there is a copy mistake, apt. Okay, hit enter now. Okay, so looks like it is done. In the meantime, I have copied all the commands that we have done, apt-get update, install, and then the other commands. So now what we need to do is we need to check that this Docker has been installed properly. So we can first check the version, Docker dash version, and it just give us 20.10.14, which is the last stable version at the time of this recording. So let us clear the screen and let us run the command of hello world to confirm that our Docker is installed properly. So it should be somewhere listed here, Docker run hello world. Okay, so let me just paste this one here and it will say the image is not there in this machine, so it's going to pull down from the Docker hub and it's going to run. Okay, so looks like everything's fine. Hello from Docker. This message shows that your installation appears to be working absolutely fine. Okay, so next we can go to the post installation steps. Okay, in the post installation step, we have to do few things here. I'll come back in the top, but before that, let us do this command: systemctl enable docker.service and container.service. Okay, let me clear the screen and let me just paste it here. And the other one is systemctl enable docker.service. Okay, so let me also put it here. Okay, so these two commands are actually going to help us start our Docker when we reboot our machine. Okay, by default it will not be started. We need to put these commands so that this Docker is started when we actually boot our machine. Okay, also the other command is systemctl status status docker, and you should see the status of this docker in our Linux machines. So systemctl status docker is one of the other command to check our docker service is running or not. And then the other commands are stop, and the next command is start. If ever you want to stop and start your docker, you can use this command systemctl stop docker or start docker. Okay, so now let us go up and see what all it is saying. Okay, so what we need to do is to run docker without root privileges, which is actually what we need. So this machine is running Jenkins. We are running a Jenkins server is running in this machine. So we're going to need the Jenkins user to be able to run this docker, okay, the docker command. So right now, say for example, I come out of this and I try to run docker run hello world, and it's going to give me this permission denied error. So what we need to do is we need to be able to allow the other users other than root users to be able to run this docker commands. So let us go back to our sudo and let us add this group docker. Okay, group add docker. Group docker already exists. It would have already created when I ran the docker installation. And then we have to do user mode ag docker, and what is the user which we want to give? One is the general user, which we just show after logging in. We'll give the permission for general user, and then the other one is the Jenkins user, Jenkins. So we're giving both general as well as Jenkins user to run this docker command. Now let us again go back to the general user and let us try to run this docker run hello world. Okay, it will still give us this permission error. So for that, what we can do is we can actually log into the sudo user and we can reboot this VM. If testing on virtual machines, it may be necessary to restart the virtual machine for the changes to take effect. Okay, so we just did a reboot of our virtual machine. Okay, this should solve our permission denied issue after we put in the required permissions. Let's go to our VirtualBox and see what's going on there. So looks like it got started, and then okay, so now I'm logged in again after reboot, and now let us try to run this hello world, and now you see everything is fine. Hello from docker. Okay, so this message shows that your installation appears to be working correctly. So other users other than root user is able to use the docker command. So everything's fine now. The Jenkins user should also be able to do it. Okay, so that's all in this session, and thank you so much.